Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming. I am once again in the From the Depths designer with a range of guns, which just been working out some sizes and shells for some simple guns. And as I spoke about in the end of the last campaign video, it's time for a big ship to take out the deep water guard and also act as a first big ship against our next faction we go against, which could be the Onyx watch or the white Flayers. I haven't made the mind up yet. First of all though, I was just going to say this particular video possibly going to be done in multiple parts. The first version I'm going to do the speed build sort of video where I just speed build over a couple of highlighted parts with some text about what the end build is, so you can, people have been putting comments up about that, which is excellent, exactly the idea. Hopefully the 4 times speed is okay, because most people can slow it down if they want to and just have a little bit more in-depth look at any of the bits if they feel like it. The other side is some people have asked for a bit more in-depth, so I'm going to do in a separate playlist some of the building at normal speed, but with me talking about why I'm making the decisions I am and what my thought process is in why I am building it. So it will be a number of longer videos. Any thoughts on that? Please let me know, but that's the plan at this moment. Okay, that sorted out. Let me start off with the first part of this ship. So the ship I am thinking of at this moment is basically a battleship of early type of construction to fit in with the theme that I've been operating with. I want to go with something which is early style for a battleship. So what I'm thinking is pre-dreadnought. So what is a pre-dreadnought battleship compared to other battleships? Most people, when you say battleship, they think Yamato, Iowa, Missouri, that all those type of really big end game battleships that had massive guns and every other gun you can think of on board. And they were the ultimate development. But earlier battleships were very much just ships that were to go into the line of battle. Because a lot of their thinking was still based upon the combat they were expecting. They were expecting the two fleets to go line abreast and battle itself out, pounding away at each other at fairly short range. We're talking 4,000 to 5,000 meters in was expected. I think even when the Japanese and Russians met, it was only a maximum range of 7,000, but fairly close range for these steel ships. And the gunfire was fairly slow. They weren't expected to put out a massive rate of fire. It was a fairly slow rate of fire. So that was one part. The gun technology wasn't firing out to the equivalent to 20,000-30,000 meters, 20-30 kilometers. They were just firing fairly close range. The other part of it was they had multiple sets of guns. You'd have your main battery, which would be basically 2 turrets or 4 guns, sometimes even only 1 gun in a turret, but say 4 guns. Of say 12-inch was very common. Some went up to 13, and some went as low as 10, but 12 seemed to be the most common, because to be honest, most pre-dreadnoughts were based upon British technology, and they were running at 12 inches because gun technology was such that 12-inch was reliable and relatively accurate at that time. So you had the 12-inch guns, which were basically your armor-piercing guns. The aim of those guns were a big, heavy shell that would penetrate the enemy ship and then explode inside. You then have your intermediary guns, or sometimes secondary guns, which would also fire at the main target. And this was the key difference between later ships. These intermediary guns, secondary guns, would be anything from a 9 to 6 inch. You know, it was quite common to have 8 and 9 inch guns, which would fire rapidly a high explosive shell at the enemy ship to take out equipment and spotting and guns on the surface of the ship, so on the hull and the surface of the ship. But they would be firing at the same range. They'd still expect to be firing at 4,000 to 5,000 meters, as an example. Then you'd have a third trinary, or a third set of guns, which would be aimed to take out destroyers and torpedo boats, which are expected to get fairly close. Well, mainly cruisers and destroyers, but they're getting close, 2,000 meters, etc., 3,000. And these would be just like 12-pounder, you know, sort of 100mm, 70mm type of guns. Then finally you'd have a third set again, which could be anything from a 47mm down to machine guns, against torpedo boats, because torpedoes at that time did not have a very long range. So you can see the battleships had quite a wide range of guns, even against surface vessels. A lot of your later World War II ships had a wide range of guns because of aircraft, not because of other surface vessels, and they certainly weren't expecting to use more than one set of guns in the main area of battle. And we'll get into dreadnoughts when they come up. So my aim on this build is something around 100,000 resource points, say, and we're looking at following something like the HMS Agamemnon. We're not going for USS Texas or the Japanese Mikasa. They were a little too early. We're going something a little bit later. So the Petrov class of battleship in the Russians, the HMS Agamemnon, the Majestic, where they were similar to what would be seen as a modern battleship, but they just had quite a range of guns. We'll talk about why that didn't work in modern battleships when we get onto the actual dreadnought. and after quite a long build, so this has been over like 2 days or so, I am finally back in what I have called the Nelson class of battleship, pre-dreadnought battleship. For those that skipped through and just went to the last bit, we've got a couple of 13.5 mil, well 348 millimeter, 13.5 inch main guns, and some secondary 236 mil, which is about 9-10 mil inch, along with a host of AAA guns, 80mm, and some machine guns for close-in defence in little barbettes, some missiles for short range, air-to-air and long range, with a little shield which pops over when there is enemy gets too close. I have worked on some anti-munition guns. They haven't quite worked as well as I would like, so I may change them to just be anti-air and rely on the flares and interceptors against missiles instead. But I'll have a little play with those. They didn't quite work as well as I would have liked, unfortunately. Some of it's the fire rate, some of it maybe they are working, they just can't take enough of the enemy missiles out. It depends how many come forward. They're still fairly close range, really. So anyway, time for a bit of a battle test. I will say I did put it up against the crossbones, and on its own it was about 50-50. It was very close. The crossbones is somewhat larger. This is 116,000. I think the crossbones 180,000, something like that. It also has shields. I don't have shields on this at this moment, so it's a little. It is a little different ship, but we managed to soak up the punishment, and also did eventually, but it was very close. Both ships were severely damaged before they ended up just sinking, and it took a long time. So we'll go for a simpler little battle here, just to show what it's like. Maybe start off with some airplanes, just to show the air-to-air functionality of the ship. So I've launched in some Dusters and Shrikes to come in, just to show the AA functions of the ship. We'll see from the ship first. So the main guns will, the secondary guns will fire, and we have the secondary guns as well. See, there's a significant amount of AA being put up there with flat guns and flat cannons. And when in close, the machine guns do cut in to put a nice bit of fire in there. The anti-munition guns do work, it's just they are firing at the missiles that are inbound, just not really hitting as much as I would have liked, to be frankly honest. Machine gun took out the duster as expected, so yep. Once they're at longer range, it is still putting out good fire at the enemy. It's just obviously they're, especially these Shrikes, they go a little bit weird, and it's very difficult for the AI to target them. So up against aircraft, it can defend itself, but it's not ideal, and I would still like to give an AA frigate as cover for it to protect it against larger AA aircraft, but it can hold its own up against them. The deficiency of this ship is its ammo supply. Although it's got a lot of ammo, all the guns, not all the guns, but most of the guns use a lot of ammo when it comes to reloading. So after they've used whatever is in their clip, those that have clips, there's a long delay possibly after that initial alpha strike whilst all the guns reload. But let's give it against a suitable ship and see how we go. Something suitably sized. So I've brought in a plunderer out at 3,000 meters, so the missiles first from the central bay will target it, and the guns will start firing at about 3,000 meters. We will go and have a look at the plunderer over here. So we've got some missiles. There's 8 missiles, long range missiles that can come in just to do a bit of damage. They're mainly designed for land bombardment. Think of them as a harpoon, so they're not going to take something out, but at long range at least they're getting some early damage in. So the enemy crams are firing. We're at about 2,700. Yes, our own main guns are now firing in on the front. And some of our main guns come in, just done a nice bit of damage on the initial shot. The main guns have got a reasonable initial fire rate, and then they have to start reloading. Now the plunderer here does have a few shields, but it's not helping him. And now we've got also the HE guns firing in, and you can see they are exploding close or near to the target and causing damage to detectors and any sort of vulnerable parts. And even if they hit shields, they will still fire off their explosives and frags and hopefully do some damage. So we're working our way through. This isn't doing massive amount of one-shot damage. You can see all the HE and frag that is hitting in the area from the guns. This just wears you down. If we look at our own ship now, see if we've taken a bit of damage. No, we're okay at the moment still. We may have taken some light damage. But the flak guns do fire also at sea targets. They are a dual purpose gun. So their flak and the HE will still do damage to a ship like this. Obviously the main guns firing at the rear there and the front are the primary damage dealers. I haven't put torps on there because it's not the style I'm going for with this particular gun. So you can see the plunderer here has just been reduced down with all of the HE and fragments. It's just gradually taken it down to a wreck, and we're getting 2 damage there now as well. So okay, it's a bit of a medium range brawler ship. Takes you out with HE, and the guns do a bit of damage. They're not massive and great, but that is the style I'm going for. The pre-dreadnought ships were less than ideal. That's why the dreadnoughts came in and increased things with much more powerful guns and higher velocities, longer ranges, etc. So this is just a staging point. About the ammo on the right hand side, you'll see that the ammo is now all down at 100, even with processors. So this ship is going to be very resource hungry. So when it wins, it's going to have to suck up all the resources to resupply and rebuild all the ammo. I will put in a little controller just to stop if there's no enemies left, then it won't use the ammo processors and just use normal ammo and bits and pieces like that. So I'll make a few little changes to it. Anyway, I'm gonna spawn this into the campaign and go against the Deepwater Guard. So that will be the next video. Anyway, hope you enjoy. Leave your comments down below. As always, keep playing the game and have fun.